So everybody, look, I'm going to kick off the session. A very, very warm welcome to everyone for coming along. This is our very first mobility morning in Sydney. These are running right now across all of Australia and New Zealand. In fact, New Zealand's already had theirs this morning. We're running it simultaneously in Melbourne, in Canberra, in Brisbane, in Adelaide and Perth, and Wellington and Auckland. So it's a new initiative. We want to increase the time we spend in front of our partners and distributors. We want to update you regularly on what's going on in the Aruba world. Appreciate your support. So we're also keen to get your feedback. Is this the right time? Should it be done earlier? Should it be done later? Let us know what works best. We're going to keep the same time and the same location for the next 6 months. So if you've registered for the next 5 sessions, you'll be easy to find next time you come along. And always keen to get your feedback, so please feel free. And make sure you tick your name off, give your Joy your details so we can make sure you get a copy of the recording. So once again, welcome. I'm going to pass over to Ram to give you an update on everything to do with Aruba for 2018.
So I'm Ram from the Systems Engineering team based in Sydney. So this session is going to be a very high-level overview of all the product lines that we have, and we will be getting into the updates about what's new, what's coming out this year on switching, on wireless, security, and management. So this is once we do this session, in the next couple of months, we have a deep dive sessions into switching, AOS 8, security, management, and also on resources on pre-sales that are available today. So let's kick it off. If you have any questions, just stop by. And first, we are going to kick off with just a recap on the mobile-first architecture and few of the analyst reviews about what they think about the mobile-first architecture, what kind of ratings that we got it from Gartner, and then we will get into the updates about WLAN, switching, AOS 8, and then security. So this report was out last year, end of last year, and one of the things you have to remember is it's just a two-horse race. It's Aruba and Cisco, and this report is very special, where you could see on the far end, the most innovative product that we got out, in the visionary side, and that too in the leaders quadrant. So that's very special, and along with that, we have few things like market share. How much market share we won in the last year, and both put together for both wired and wireless. And along with this report, Gartner did release the critical capabilities report. So if you have any opportunities in any of these use cases, I know you guys will be positioning Aruba for wireless, but you need to also look at the other use cases like all wired opportunity or a unified wired wireless, and branch office SD-WAN opportunities, and performance stringent applications opportunities. So just keep in mind, we are not just a wireless only vendor. We do have other opportunities to work on. So just to recap, a quick one. I'm not going to spend much time on this. What we produce: wireless controllers, access points, and you have the remote access technology that lives in the internet. How many of you know about RAPs? So it's like something lives in the internet, and if you want to extend your corporate office over the internet to a small branch office, with a simple extension without touching the wheels and balls. So that's a very good one. With a zero-touch configuration, you can simply establish a remote connectivity back to your corporate office. And access switching, that's a big thing. We introduced our core switches end of last year, the big chassis and the small fixed form factor as well, and then the SD-WAN components. But to manage and run all these hardwares, we need some smart softwares. That's where we score higher than the competition. So the softwares, if you look at the AOS 8 is missing here, but if you look at the management, from the management point of view, Airwave is pretty much a multi-vendor management network for both wired and wireless. and it can give you pretty good insights about the user experience you are connecting to the network, and pretty much all the diagnostics and the operations that any network needs today. Security, again, is a big thing. ClearPass, you guys know it's been there for a while. Network access control, it's like a gatekeeper. It checks who comes in and allows the user and the device onto the network. And with the introspect, we have something, getting into the security space, so where, it really captures the user behavior and it identifies, what's going on, who is the malicious intruder that is inside of the network, which can be, pretty much, if you look at the existing security technologies that are available today, they couldn't find a legitimate, if somebody's, behaving like a legitimate user, but he's, uploading heaps of data to somewhere outside the cloud, then, we have to identify that particular user. But if somebody's pretending to be a legitimate user, this traditional security systems can, evade of getting through it. So how do we identify that malicious intruder? And we have network analytics. So that's from the acquisition of Rasa Networks. So that's very new, network analytics. We have heard about analytics, from the retail perspective. So network analytics is something new. Say, for instance, if you're running a network, and if you want to get some feedback about what is going on with the network, how quickly the users authenticate, how quickly they get onto the network, and you compare this data with other customers' network, and it gives you the results, and it gives you feedback about how to improve your network. Where are the points, where are you lagging? So it gives you, it pinpoints, the recommendations that is required for your network. So we will go deep into Net Insight and location-based services. So there are a few use cases for location-based services. So the commonly used is, the guest portal, get into the open, any shopping center or any public hotspot venue. You will be redirected to a splash page, and then you have all the advertising or single sign-on process. So you can pretty much have everything there. But the key is, if you look at the proximity, the location-based services, they have moved from Wi-Fi to Bluetooth. So technically, if you're deploying a Aruba 3 series access points, you are deploying a wireless network as well as a Bluetooth network simultaneously. And you can use those Bluetooth network for delivering location-based services. And if you want to identify, from a point A to point B, if you walk into a hospital and if you want to see a doctor and you have an appointment fixed, and if you want to know how to get to that destination, it gives you a point-by-point directions back to the destination. And there are pretty cool use cases. The new one is the asset tags. So where these asset tags are, primarily used for, locating the high-value equipments. So, if you want, in hospitals and retail, we have to, there might be some pallet sitting around the corner. How do we identify that? Versus medical, if you want to identify a wheelchair in a hospital, right? How quickly I can get to it. So often the traditional method of doing it is, using the RFID tags. You tag them to a wheelchair, and then you have to call somebody and ask them, where it's lying. He has to look up in the map and then tell you where it is and which floor it is and on which corner it's sitting there. Versus with this technology, you can pretty much, the user can tap an app on the phone and then identify where this particular wheelchair is, and then he can go and get that for that particular patient. So it's very helpful, and it's quicker, and the proximity-based messaging as well. If you want to deliver a message, as soon as you walk into a hospital, it says that, you have an appointment, but the doctor's room is changed from A to B. So as soon as you walk in, we can deliver this proximity-based message, once you get into the hospital. And not just that, even it could be an enterprise, it could be an airport. So wherever it is, we can twin the use cases based on our requirements. So that's it. A quick update on, just a recap on the mobile-first architecture. So wireless, we have updated all our access points to a Wave 2 technology. So you should be selling the 3 series access points, the 300 or the 310, the 320, 330, and the 340. How many of you have seen 340? Have you heard about it? No, a few of them. That's good. except in few cases like wraps. So it's still, based on 2.0 series. But outside that, if you look at the indoor and the outdoor hospitality version, it's all 300 series. So it comes with the Bluetooth built-in. And 340 is, we released it last month. So it has, you might, sound like, we have been making more noises about dual 5 gig, but this particular series does support dual 5 gig. So you can turn one of the radios into a 5 gig radio, and then you can have two 5 gig. And it has a 2.5 gig uplink back to the switch. So that means, if you are increasing the capacity, dual 5 gig, you need more capacity on the wide as well. So that's one of the capabilities there. And you have the hospitality versions, the 303H, which goes into a room in a hotel room, so where it sits in the wall jack. And if you want to, it does provide a PoE out, so wherein you can plug in a phone or you plug in your TV, for IPTV streaming. So it does provide the backhaul connectivity to the other components in a room. And plus, it also provides Wi-Fi within the room. So it's very handy for, specifically for hotels and dorms, where you want more devices inside a room. So it's really helpful. And the outdoor series, we just released a 370 series access points. The 374, it's an update to 274 and 275. So it's based on Wave 2, and it also has BLE as well. And the one addition is, we have been, asking, seeing a lot of requests from the field to have a fiber interface. So the 370 series has a fiber interface. So you can terminate a single mode or a multi-mode fiber directly on the access point. And the ruggedized version of indoor access points. So if you don't want a waterproof access point, like in places like car parks, so where the water wouldn't get in, but still it has to be ruggedized. We don't want to put a plastic up there. So instead, we need something ruggedized indoor deployments. So we have updated that as well. Earlier we had 228, and now it's 318. So it's Wave 2. So it's been pretty much all the Wave 1 technology is all pretty much end of sale, except the 200 series. So the 210 and the 220 series are all end of sale, announced, I think, end of last month, I think. Any questions? So how many of you have sold 320 or 330, 325 or 335? So, we just released this 340. It's actually lower cost when you compare it with 320 or 330, but yeah, it provides more performance as well. It's just based on the chipset cost that has come down for the Wave 2 technology. And the advantages, like, we are not announcing end of sale for 320 or 330, but it's just the cost is, much cheaper. I think 500 or 600 bucks cheaper, RRP cheaper than the 320 and the 330. And it's exactly has the same, kind of performance that it delivers. And apart from that, what additionally it can do is, it doubles, you can turn one of the radios to, dual 5 gig. So that means, you can simultaneously run two 5 gig radios on a single access point, which provides you more capacity. And one of the things that, we put more focus on is the art of design. How if you enable two 5 gig radios on a single access point, you don't have to filter the interference between the radios, between the two 5 gig radios, which are in a close proximity. So that's one of the big things, that we have put together, and we have done really good. We have got a really good results out there, and the RF management is also dynamic. Instead of statically going and setting the radio to work on 5 gig, you can leave the RF management to AirMatch to see whether to use the radio on 5 gig or it can fall back to 2.4 gig. So it's very dynamic. And it's on the fly. You can have the clients moving between the radios.
Would it work, on the client side, whether there's a 2.4 gig client and then it's going to recalculate everything and switches to 2.4? Or?
If the client has when the client connects, sends a probe request to the network, it first decides on which radio it has to connect. If the access point is servicing a client on a specific radio, it wouldn't change that. But it's just when you're bringing up the network, depending on the load and depending on the environment, it would decide automatically whether to work on 2.4 or 5.
So in case, let's say we have got all the users on 5 gig
Mm-hmm.
and it's operating dual channel on
Yep.
both the radios, 5
Yes.
gig,
Yeah.
and let's say there's a user comes in with a
2.4.
what happens to,
Now it would be still functioning only on 5.
so there would be a problem for this user.
Yeah. If he is only working on 2.4 and if he doesn't have 5, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the outdoor, a quick update, the 275s, 274s, 277s and the 228s, pretty much have been updated. So 375s, it's pretty much the same, except it's Wave 2 multi-user MIMO, and it has a Bluetooth on the outdoor access point, and the same goes for 374. It's an option for you to use an external antenna to connect to. Instead of a built-in antenna, you have an option to connect an external antenna to it. And you have a 377, which is mostly used for point-to-point deployments. If you want to establish a backhaul between two buildings, probably you can just go with the built-in antennas, 377s. And you have the 318s, the ruggedized one, which can connect it with an external antenna, with the RPSMA external antenna. And with that, we are moving to controllers. Yeah, who likes controllers? Or you sell instant more. But I'm a controller guy, so I like controllers. So we sell everything. Yeah, you will make your quota if you sell controllers. Yeah. So with the controllers, we can scale up from small branches, from 16 access points and way up to 2,000 access points. We just released the 7280. It can go up in the future releases. We will be increasing the performance of that 7280. Today it's limited to 2K access points, but with the 8.3 and the 8.4, we plan to increase that scale to up to 4K access points. And it does provide a good amount of throughput as well. 40 gigs, couple of 40 gig interfaces, and it does provide hitless failover as well. So for small branches, we have a small set of controllers, starting from 16 all the way up to 64, and then from there it goes up with a campus, with a 250 access point limit up to 2K, and the VMC, so you can spin up a VM controller. Today, if you're using AOS 8, you don't need to buy a hardware controller. So you can spin a VM and then make that as a controller. Have you guys deployed AOS 8? Anybody? Oops, sorry. Yeah. I know Scott did some design on AOS 8. Dion, yeah, I know you did something. Yeah. So just a quick update on the massive scale. So this is really a high performance controller. If you look at like 240 gig interfaces, a couple of 10 gig interfaces, and you get a hitless failover. So in the access point, in the switch world, we had this hitless failover thing. So where when an AP is connected to two physical interfaces on a switch, if one interface fails, the other one automatically takes over all the load. Wherein, with the 7280, you still have that flexibility of a hitless failover between a 40 gig and a 10 gig interface. So you get like, a seamless failover moving from one interface to the other interface. And it's specifically built for, per user tunneling. How many of you have, used or designed a per user tunnel node? So not much, I think. So per user tunnel node or per port tunnel node. So the Aruba switches have the capability to tunnel a port back to a controller. So say for instance, if you plug in an IoT device and the switch decides, oh, this has to go through a secure firewall. I don't want to bridge this traffic into the core network, into the LAN network. Instead, I want to send this to somewhere else for more inspection. So that's where the switch establishes a GRE tunnel back to a controller. So wherein, this controller 7280 can scale up to like heaps of GRE tunnels you can terminate. So that's a very good use case, using a 7280. And we need some smart operating system, right, to manage these hardwares. Yeah, we have access points, we have controllers. So AOS 8 is one of the big things that we introduced last year, and it's been there for a while now, and it's getting better and better every day. And we have a lot of customers using, very large customers using today, about 2,000 APs, up to 5,000 APs in a cluster of controllers. So you need a mobility master to run AOS 8, because in the master local architecture, you had option to terminate the APs on the master as well as on the locals. But in the mobility master architecture, AOS 8, the mobility master doesn't terminate any access points. So it's just a pure management play. So, but it sits at the top of the network architecture, and it pretty much manages all the controllers underneath, all the nodes underneath the mobility master. And it provides a zero-touch configuration. In the master local architecture, you have to do a few things in the master and few things log into the local and do it, versus here with the AOS 8, you pretty much do everything on the master. One of the good examples is, one of our customers, we migrated them to, they were on 6.x, and we migrated a few of their sites initially to AOS 8. And the good thing is, we haven't touched any configuration changes after the first few deployments. So the rest of the sites are like, already you have all the configurations at the top folder. And when you create something underneath, it just sucks all the configurations from the top folder and adds it to the node. So it's pretty flexible in terms of management and deployment. It's very easy to deploy few controllers in a cluster, or sparse deployment across a WAN network. So we have centralized licensing. It's been there for a while, but with the AOS 8, you have the option of, if you run out of, today in a cluster you can have 10,000 APs under one mobility master, and if you want more, then you need to spin up another mobility master. And if you want to share licenses between the mobility master, that's where one more additional centralized licensing is coming up. But that's more for a scale, network scale. We have clustering. Have you guys heard about clustering? So that's, again, a very unique offering to the market. So where you have users on the network, and usually the HA is primary and standby, right? Usually that was the case before. And we introduced in 6.x HA Lite, that's called as, so wherein if one controller fails, the APs will automatically switch to the other controller, but the user has to do the re-authentication and negotiate the IP address. So wherein with the hitless failover, with the clustering, the user seamlessly moves from one access point to the other, one controller to the other controller. So what that means is, even if you're performing a SSL session or if you're doing a video call, you are not going to see any break if a controller fails. So your packets have been duplicated to the other controller, and that way it's a seamless transition from the end user point of view. He's not going to see any break if a controller fails. And that way you can load balance the users across multiple controllers, and that gives you the flexibility to test the load on how many APs are terminated on each controllers. So that's a very unique offering to the market. And virtual mobility master, a mobility controller, so that's there. Yeah, you can spin up a VM and run it on. Live upgrades is another new feature that we introduced with AOS 8. Again, how many of you have spent downtimes, midnights, upgrading the controllers? So with a live upgrade, you can hit live upgrade when it's at the peak of the network. So the controller, in the clustering, it decides to upgrade which controller first, move all the access points to one controller, upgrade the first controller, and then pick access point that are least occupied, least loaded, and then upgrade those access points, move the clients to the upgraded access points, and it's pretty much upgrades all. We have done a couple of test cases, and over a period of time, like 3 or 4 hours, it pretty much upgrades all the access points, the whole infrastructure. It's pretty cool, rather than spending a lot of downtime, we can pretty much do it with the live upgrades. And there is a promo going on for Mobility Master, so it's a packaged one. So if you're buying, since you have to migrate your customers to AOS 8, because in the next slides you will see why. So there is a promotion that's going on, so where the software is bundled with the Mobility Master. So it's a very good price when you compare. When you buy it alone, it's different, but with the promo, it's a very it's a least cost, so you will not complain. So yeah, with the multi-zone, that's the last one that flashes up. I didn't see that. So multi-zone is a very unique offering to the market as well. So it gives you the flexibility in an enterprise environment. If you want to logically segregate 2 different user categories, say for instance, in the guest use case in an enterprise environment, usually you have a DMZ controller, and you will have to tunnel the traffic of the guest user back to the primary controller and establish a GRE tunnel from the corporate controller back to the DMZ controller. Versus here, logically the access point talks to 2 different controllers, and it establishes 1 tunnel to the corporate controller and 1 tunnel back to the DMZ controller, and logically it is different, and there is no controller to controller communication in this case, and that takes off all the other security requirements that often come in this kind of deployment. Just a quick roadmap. So with 6.4, 6.5 today, most of our customers are running 6.5, the controller-based solution or the instant-based solution. And if you look at 8.2, both are getting merged with 8.3. So that's where we are today, with the 6.5.4 and with the 8.2. But come April, 8.3 is releasing and the code is merged. So today it's 2, but in April it would be just 1. So what that means is, you need to start moving your customers to 8.x, because there will be no more developments on 6.5. It's going to be just bug fixes, and there is no more feature requests that's going to happen on 6.5. And with the 8.3 coming out, so it's a good for your customers to transition them to 8x. And we have some partner training programs that are coming up as early as next month, so you can sign up for that. And then if it's a very large deployment, we will be glad to help you as well, because we have done few migrations, so we can help you to migrate the customers from the legacy to AOS 8. Quick one, how many of you heard about unified access point? Yeah, okay, that's good. So moving forward, it's going to be a unified access point. So there are no 2 different versions. It's just access point. You can run it on instant or a controller based. So be it 334 or 375, or it's all pretty much the same. Come to 8.4, mid of this year, WPA3 is a big thing, right? So that's not going to be supported on 6.5. So if you want WPA3 support, so you have to move your customers to AOS 8. So that's where it's being supported. And PPSK, how many of you have been asking PPSK? Yeah, so it's been a lot of requests from the field about personal pre-shared keys, using multiple pre-shared keys on the same SSID. So that's been a big requirement from the field. So that's coming out in the mid of this year. And heaps of the beacon management and the asset tags management. So that's actually picking up really well, and we are incorporating a lot of tag management as well into the mobility controllers. And at the end of the year, you have, AX and AD coming out. So that will be in 8.5 and some additional routing capabilities. So AX is going to be a big thing, because you will have the opportunity to upgrade the switches. So often, we don't get this opportunity to transition your customers from an AC to AX. So it's like just that wave, that's where we capture our customers. So yeah, AX is like schedule of end of this year. So any questions on WLAN before we move to switching?
So I've got one question.
Yeah.
For a smaller customer, do we need to have a mobility master, or we can just go with the mobility controller and then the APs?
If it's just 2 controller deployment? Single, just one. So we have a trimmed down version, but yeah, you need at least a mobility master to run that. Or you have a master controller mode. Can we terminate APs on the master controller mode, Mara? Yeah, I don't think yeah. So there is an option for you to have a master controller mode, but still you need the mobility master. But if you look at the deployments, it's getting we have different combination of the mobility masters, starting as small as 50. So and then it's really cheap, and it just needs a VM. So it's just flexible deployment and more features that you get.
So in any case, we need to have a master.
Mobility master, yeah.
And back in the slide, you have a controller for like 8 to 16 APs.
Yeah.
When IAPs can support up to 128 APs, I think.
Yeah.
Why do we need to have a controller then?
So there are different use cases. It depends on the customer. Recently, we were working on an outdoor requirement, outdoor opportunity. So where that customer, it's very hard for him to go and configure the switch ports. So they are out there in the field. It's outdoor shipping yard deployment, and the switches are in the light poles. And he doesn't want the VLAN configurations at the edge. So if you and he wants to consolidate all the traffic back to the core, and the controllers are the easiest way to do it. And we have some enterprise customers who work only on the control, who select only on the controllers. So it's all and not just 128 APs. There is a cap on the number of users as well in the instant technology. So you have to either it's 2K users or 128 access points, but you have to touch your switch edge ports to have multiple VLANs and things like that. So this is, controller would be pretty easy deployment. You don't need to touch your edge switches. Everything goes to the core. You manage everything at the core.
Okay, so in case somebody needs all the traffic goes to the controller,
yeah,
then that's the best way to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions on wireless? Yeah.
Do the older models become unified APs when you're upgraded to 8.3?
No.
It's only those specific.
Yes. Only the new ones. Yeah.
They presumably be sort of cut off from support at some point in 8.3, like the old 205s and that?
Just 205s might be supported, but definitely not the 100 series. It's all gone with the AOS 8. 10, nothing that starts with 100 is supported. Yeah.
There aren't any plans to not support 200 series in APX, so it's going to be for some time yet because it's the instant control. Yeah.
All right. So let's get on with the switching. So we have a switching expert sitting right here to get your questions.
A deep dive in 8.x in I think it's 2 months' time. So
Yeah.
That session, it'll be a whole session on 8.x and how to configure and modulate and so on.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's in April or something. Yeah.
March or April, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So switching. So how many of you have sold Aruba switches? Yeah.
Everybody, come on.
Not Josh. So we released because of cloud, because of a lot of traffic that is being pushed to the network, there is a demand that was driving, that led us to develop a core and an aggregation switch, based on our mobile-first architecture. So and last year, we introduced the 8400s, and then followed by early this year the 8320. So, now we have a complete core and aggregation portfolio. So to address all the demands that are coming up, look at the density, to address the density, to address the performance, and then to address one of the important things, the automating all the stuff. Often, we hear from customers, how do I troubleshoot this problem, right? How do I identify the root cause of a specific issue? So we are focusing more on identifying, helping the network administrators to identify what's the real issue. So with the Aruba OS CX, so both the platforms, 8400 and 8320, they both run on the Aruba OS CX operating system. And if you look at, from the architecture point of view, it's pretty much built based on automation. It's a kind of like where you have all the REST APIs to pretty much manage things. So rather than if you are a CLI person, you got to learn. It's easier. The transition is going to be easy from the CLI world of things to scheme of things to moving to the REST APIs. So we have a good library in the backend. Our communities are developing for that, and with a CX, it has a database, which has host of which controls all the aspects of the structure of all the modules that are in there, and then the critical part is it has a network analytics engine. So what essentially it does is it's the core of Aruba OS CX. So what essentially it does is it helps you identify all the problems that you have in your network. For instance, if you have something that's going on, say for instance something happened this morning at 3 a.m. and when you walk into the office this morning, there are a bunch of emails saying, hey, can you identify what could be the problem? What is the root cause for this issue? And what will happen is, usually the usual task is, okay, I'll log into the switch, I run some commands, get some captures, compare the logs, and then if I couldn't find it, I raise a tag case, and they ask me again to run some commands, get some logs, enable some packet capture, and then send it back to them. And this is the cycle that we are going through, right? It's not easy. Like if you want to identify something very quickly, we have to, we need to capture the information that happened at 3 a.m. rather than, we are trying to just find out by checking the logs and the capture, we are trying to identify what happened before. But since we didn't have much information now, and the tag comes back to you saying, we couldn't find anything in those logs, so we have to enable some captures, and we have to capture the information when it's happening. So it's all these cycles that going back to tag or working through with your colleagues, that's consuming a lot of time to identify the root cause. With the network analytics engine, you can host agents. And these agents can be your support engineers, or it can be your 24/7 monitoring tools. So wherein it monitors the environment and it flags off, it triggers, if something goes wrong. All these is based on the API scripts. So we have these library that is built in with the community. So you can take it and tweak it based on your requirement, and then you can have all these network analytics agents sitting on the box, checking through what's going on and capture that information when that issue occurs, and then you have the information and you can proceed with how to troubleshoot or how to identify what could be the potential root cause of that problem. So it's very useful, and it's a different way of looking at the things. Wherein 10 years back we were learned more of a CLI, go and log in and issue a few commands and then trying to identify something, versus the future is, when we have a lot of other devices in the network, you have to be quick to identify, what the root cause. So, network analytics engine is definitely going to help you find all those problems that you have in the network. Just a quick recap on our access switching portfolio. So starting from 2530 way up to 5400. So we have different combinations. So most of us sell the 2930 Fs and the 2930Ms, and then a few enterprise customers they choose the 3810s, and few other customers for core, if it's a small core or aggregation, they go with the 3810s or the 5400s. So no licensing fee to enable the routing features. Yesterday I was working with one of the partners. It was like we were comparing with Cisco, and I had to go through the BOM, with all the base license, the advanced license. So there is no licensing fee on the access switching. You can scale up to, right from the uplinks can scale up to 10 gig, up to 140 gig on the 5400s. And if you look at the PoE capacity today on the 2930Fs are 340, but it's changing. We are introducing a new model that can cater up to 740 watts of PoE in a fixed format. So that means you can pretty much run all the 24 ports on AF and 48 ports on AF and 24 ports on AT. So core and aggregation, so 3810s and 5400s again, the 8320 and the 8400s. So if you want to have a big aggregation, like going up to 40 and then terminating the core all the way up to 100 gig, so then these chassis can help you address the requirements. So 2930M, so with the new access points, 340 series and the 330 series, you need more backhaul. So that's where we got the smart ports on the 2930Ms. So they can do 2.5 gig and 5 gig. And you have a 1 RU switch that is completely smart rate ports, with a complete smart rate ports. So yeah, back in 3810s, we didn't have this smart ports on all the switch ports, but with the 2930Ms, you can have that flexibility. Hope you guys know what's the M means. So it's modular. You can, it does support the backplane stacking. The 3810M and the 2930M, it's more of a backplane support. Versus the fixed version, it supports front plane stacking, up to 4 units, and you can do the same thing with the 5400s as well. So it also supports the front plane stacking. So with the 2930F, 3 new models are coming out with a more capacity, power capacity. Nothing has changed. So 740 watts of PoE that's available for connecting, powering up your access points or IoT devices. Have anybody positioned 8320 now? Yeah, except Raf. So that's a very new one. So, but it's it can address the needs that are demanding in a school or in an enterprise environment. The switching capacity can go up to 2.5 terabytes, and the big chassis can go up to all the way up to 19 terabytes of switching capacity. So it's really big, massive. And if you want redundancy, it supports multi-lag, M-lag as well. So it provides you the redundancy capability. And yeah, one point I forgot to mention is about the database. Yeah, so it's critical that it's more of a database driven. So it has all the information in there, and using APIs you can pull out all the information. And these APIs, we support different scripting applications. So you could use Python, or you could use Ruby or Swagger. So it depends on, like, we support up to 15 types of scripting applications. So you can pretty much use the REST APIs to pull out the information from the database. Anything you want to add, Richard?
Since I'm going to be doing this in a lot more detail in
Yeah.
the next session in a month's time, Richard will come on to that.
When's that, Richard?
Same time next month.
Oh, okay.
21st next month.
The next
Yeah.
mobility.
Morning.
Yes.
Yep, that's right. Just a quick dive into the technology. 802.3 BT. So if you want more power, more than 30 watts of power, so today everybody is pretty much using their own standards, right? UPoE, PoE++, every vendor uses, you know, their own terms. But the IETF have standardized it. So BT is the one that if you need more than 30 watts of power, BT is the technology. So it uses actually the four pairs to, you know, supply 60 or 100 watts of power back to the device. So you might think, you know, what kind of devices are we going to connect? It could be laptops, you know, with the via the Ethernet, you know, enable power to charge your laptops, and you have a wide connectivity. So that's one of the use cases. And you have AX access points coming out, you know, which might need more power as well. So, you know, these are the driving factors for BT. This is just a evolution of like what we have. You know, we had AF, you know, supplying 15 watts of power, and then 80, you know, that was providing us 30 watts of power. But with a BT, you know, it is classified tires, you know, different tires and different types, and with the different types you can supply all the way go up to 100 watts of power back to the switchboard.
Still over Cat 6?
I think so. Is it over Cat 6?
Is it still over Cat 6 cable, isn't it? 100 watts of power over it. As opposed to Cat 6A or Cat 7?
Anything newer?
No, it's still on Cat 6A, I think you have to say, rather than Cat 6.
Okay. And 25G, you know, often, you know, we don't have anything in between the 10 and the 40. So either you have to go with the 40 uplinks or with the 10 uplinks, or you have to do a LACP on 10. So versus 25G, you know, that's in between. So it gives you the flexibility to, it still uses the 10G, the same fiber cabling that goes back, but you can upgrade that to a 25 using the existing infrastructure with a different transceiver. It could go up to 25 gig. So I know you're going to ask more questions on this one. You know, it's a busy slide with a lot of things here. So when we, you know, when all these legacy HP switches were converted to Aruba branded switches, it all started with the 1601, and then we added features there. The first one being the integration, you know, better together story, you know, adding the wireless features capability, like, you know, detecting a rogue access point, and then came the per user, per port tunnel node, so which the Aruba legacy switches had. So those were the first features, you know, that were migrated to the legacy switches and branded as Aruba. And then, you know, we got 1602, you know, which was providing more zero-touch provisioning, where, you know, no need to go and touch any of the switch console ports anymore. Just plug in them, point it to Airwave, and suck the configuration from the management platform. So it was more of that. And then we added capability of using, you know, integration more with the ClearPass, more capability of, you know, doing captive portal at the edge, and that came in later. And today, you know, we are at 6.05. So there are a few things, you know, this is a big thing, configuration, you know, update without rebooting the switch. So that's one of the big things that I've come up with. And clarity support. You know, how good is the user experience when somebody's connected onto the switchboard? So that's one of the critical things that we added in on 6.5. And you could ask this question, the advanced threat detection. I don't know what it is, but yeah, we'll have some answers in the next session. Okay, that's about switching. The next is about Airwave. What do you think?
You guys
Yeah?
excited?
Yeah?
Very quiet.
Just a bit of a history about how many years we have been using Airwave. So it's almost 17 years. So in the early 2000s, we had this product managing multiple products. They were like a carrier before back then, and they were deploying different products for different cities, a hotspot provider, and they wanted a single management tool that can do multi-vendor. And it evolved over a period of time. We added capability like switches support. Initially we said multi-vendor for wireless, and then everybody came asking, oh, we have to support. And we had some partnerships with Juniper and Brocade, and then we added support for supporting those switches as well. And then Clarity came in. That's one of the big enhancements that we had in Airwave. So it's still a good software for up to 4,000 devices. If it's one server, it's perfectly fine. We have a lot of happy customers using it today. But the problem is, if you look at Department of Education, so they have like about 40 servers, and that's where it starts slowing down things. Like Visual RF is really a pain in that kind of environment, managing 40,000 access points with the different servers. You have to log in and change the Visual RF. It's really a pain. But for all those things, we had something to address that issues. Reporting was one of the big things where if you want to pull 40 servers and fetch reports, the master console was really slow, and that's where Glass was born. So with the Glass, it's built on a web scale technology, so that way it can quickly pull all the 40 servers and fetch you the reports that you're looking for. So it's quicker because it's built from the scratch. So, but we have complaints. Still we have few customers using. We have a lot of customers using Airwave today. So if it's a single appliance, it's not a problem at all. So it's when it's growing bigger and bigger, more than 3 or 4 appliances, that's where it gets, the management becomes, it's not consistent. You can't cluster them. Yeah, it's isolated, and it's just the reporting that you get it out of the Glass. The management plane is completely separate. You have to individually manage each service. So but having said that, yeah, up to 4,000 users, it's perfectly fine. 4,000 devices, sorry. And we do start adding capabilities to it. So we just added the topology view of connecting all the APs on which switches they are connected, and then back to the core switch. So it supports the 8400s and the 8320s as well. So you get a full topology view, and you get all these when you hover over the marks, it tells you what's the exact problem there.
So that's also now got all of the Comware products, so you can see Comware things like the routers and so on in there.
Yeah.
You've also got spanning tree views, so it's come along nicely.
But do we sell that, Richard? No.
What?
Maybe.
Things like spanning tree?
No, Comware.
Comware's still part of the portfolio
Yeah.
for now, although it's been
Yeah.
in campus, not data center. Just
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, just in campus. Yeah. So it's more of since we have end-to-end core. Earlier we didn't have the core. When you're talking about last year, we had to rely on Comware. But today, we have end-to-end core. The 8400s and the 8300s are good enough to cater all the requirements of the aggregation and the core. So challenges. So the performance is one of the bottlenecks that we have with Airwave 8. So it's more about making and going changes into the Visual RF, and the reporting takes about 20 or 30 minutes, Dion. How many minutes? Yeah. So to generate a report, if you have multiple servers, we're talking about 40 servers, 40 physical servers. So that's where there is some delay in getting all the reports. And from the engineering point of view, we had 2 teams, one for the cloud and one for the on-prem. But that's changing. So you call it Airwave X or Airwave 10. So that's coming out mid of this year. and it's going to be just one software, and you have two deployment options. So either you can spin it on the cloud or on-prem. So you have two deployment options. So it's built on the web scale, so it can scale up to 25,000 devices in a cluster, and it provides it's more of the response time for the reports and all the visual RF things, drawbacks that we had in the visual RF is getting fixed there. And do you see this? It's the same code as Central. So it's the other way we are coming up, taking all the Airwave features and using the Central code and adding up all the features there. So, and then the future is the ALE. Few of our partners are selling ALE, so that's today it's in maintenance mode, but it will be moving to Airwave 10. So you don't need a separate software to collect all these location data. Airwave will be doing that as a part of it.
So Graham, just on this, when will this be released to the market? When can the partners start?
I think mid of this year.
Middle of the year?
Yeah, middle of this
So
year.
they can start talking about it now?
Yeah, they can start talking about now, but there are few caveats around that.
Okay.
So I think that's being covered in the next slide. So there are a few caveats like, while you're starting, it's going to support only Aruba devices, so Aruba wired and wireless. So it's not going to be a full multi-vendor, but later on, we will be adding all the capabilities. But the version 1 would be just Aruba wired and wireless. And they are the potential customers that we are looking at. And the eligibility for that is, if somebody is considering Airwave, they need to have that enough devices. So if you're talking about 8,000 devices, more than 8,000 access points and switches, then we're talking about looking at Airwave 10. And if it's still it's less than 2 servers, then it's Airwave 8 is still good enough. So can scale up to 25K devices. Still, the cap on the number of devices per server is 4K, but it can scale up to in a clustered environment with the management plane being synchronized. You can scale up to 25K devices, and pretty much the version 1 will support all the features that we have on AOS on Airwave 8 for Aruba, for both wired and wireless. So be it Clarity or AppRF, UCC, everything will be supported from day one.
Will that be GUI switch configuration? Central now, in the template configuration?
Template, still it is template. We have, still it is template based. In Airwave 10, I don't know. Yeah. I think did see something on that okay. So it's going, you need a new server. It could be a VM or a hardware. So, but we can migrate the existing data to from Airwave 8 to Airwave 10, but you need to spin up a new software. So that's one of the requirements. And you get it both virtual or a hardware option, and some features that's going to come from Central as well. So it might incorporate some features from Mobility Master, from ALE and Glass. So ALE is definitely moving into Airwave, but there might be some features that are coming up from Mobility Master and Glass as well, from the reporting point of view if you're searching on multiple servers. So it was Airwave 8. So A2X was out last week, and you have all pretty much the switch configuration, without the reboot thing, and run some CLI commands. I did see, so the support of partial configurations for the switch, that's still there. That's a part of 8.826, and some light features for the switches are being added. So now if you look at wireless, it's more about, air match is one of the things that it gives you enough information about what happened, for what was the reason for changing the channel, right? Because air match calculates it, uses its machine learning and calculates its back 24 hours and recommends a channel and a power level to access point. Versus, we don't see that. If you want to see that, you have to go and run some few commands to get that output. Versus, we enable that visibility in Airwave to show you, on what circumstances this has been changed. So that's just enabling, and there are some few things that are coming up in Glass as well. Yeah, I think, except the Department of Education, nobody else is today using Glass. It's more, if you have a large network, more than 8,000, 10,000 access points, or devices switches, that's where, Glass makes sense.
Hey, Ram,
Yeah.
PoE status, what's included with that?
PoE status? I don't know. Richard?
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We just have 20 more minutes. I have to.
You start a little bit late, so we started
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's about management. So, any questions? Before we jump into security.
Anything new in Central?
That's coming
Yeah,
up
it's coming later.
later. Yeah. After security. So, and if you look at the security landscape, cyber threats are becoming more and more, in an enterprise network. It's really, coming up really, really hard and really damaging. So if you look at attacks today, they are more targeted and they are more intelligent, and they can actually pretty much damage, and the damage is really high, until you find out in the news or in the dark web what's available about your organization, right? So the threat that's growing from inside of the network is growing, in the cyber threats. So, but how do we identify, can the legacy systems identify those problems? So that's where, we introduced this product called User Introspect, which does user entity behavioral analytics. So what essentially it does is, it looks up the user, it collects the data from all the IDs, from all the security systems. So be it firewall, be it Active Directory, identity systems, authentication systems, ClearPass, or any other product. So it receives all this IT data, and then it uses its machine learning technology and identify what's the problem. It correlates the data between the user and then tie it back to an application and the host. So it compares this data using the machine learning technology, and then it gives you a score actually, and then if it detects a behavioral change, then it tries to point you, and it quarantines the user and informs ClearPass. ClearPass quarantines the user, and potentially you can stop a breach. So we call it as, the 360. The framework that we call it is the Aruba 360 Secure Fabric. So, what that means is, if you look at the infrastructure point of view, all our products are, secured. If the wireless infrastructure, all the IDS and IPS are built in. Even if you look at the access point boot, if somebody gets access to an access point console port, they are not going to get any information out of that. Not even the encryption keys, because the data is fully encrypted. So, and all the way up to the controller, so it does the DPI and the firewall IDS IPS functions, and then the analytics sits in between, because Introspect collects all the data from all the different sources, so be it wired from the third-party infrastructure and the packet flows that it might receive from Gigamon or from other feeds. And then it uses its machine learning technology to come and identify what's wrong with the inside of the network. So if you look at the layers here, it's a true multi-vendor. ClearPass is a true multi-vendor product. It can tie it back. It can sit on any third-party infrastructure, and so is Introspect. So it can sit, it can work with any third-party infrastructures, in a pure third-party infrastructures. So we have few options there, the basic version and the advanced version. So the basic version is more for Aruba environments, and the advanced version is for the third-party environments. So when you buy that, you will get to know what it is. All right, so I was talking about the data feeds that it receives from the other different sources. So it could be authentication system. So it gets all the data into Introspect, and then it uses its machine learning, 100+ machine learning algorithms to go and identify the difference between each user and the application and the host. Think about this. If a legitimate, talking about security, Jason is here, so so you can answer all the questions, Jason. Yeah. So once it receives all the data and it correlates all this data, the critical part is, a legitimate user, he might be a user, but he could have compromised his user credentials, right? So for some reason, all right, you can clicked on some website and then it asked some information, he just entered there, and something might be sitting on that particular device, and he might not know what's happening in the background of that particular device that's trying to get data from his device and then sends it to somewhere else. So it's very hard to find something that's happening on the inside of the network. So that's where Introspect analyzes all this data, and it profiles every user on the network, saying, I come in, I've checked in to Sydney office this morning, and my usual behavior is, do some emails, download some data from the corporate, and just that. But if it identifies or detects any abnormal behavior than, like uploading data to a different country, or doing a host scan around the LAN, so if I do something abnormal, so that's where Introspect kicks in, and it sees, why am I trying to scan all the hosts in the network? That's not my job, and that's not my normal behavior. So that's where it kicks in and sees what is he trying to do, and then I might be uploading the data somewhere to another country, and it checks where is the destination. It receives all the logs from the firewall, so it knows where the destination is, and that way you can correlate all the data, what's happening for that particular user. So it's very powerful. We do have we did a POC in one of the enterprise customers, and then it did identify a few things. I think one of the guys were fired, Jason. Yeah. So it did identify some few malicious insiders. So it's the traditional, it might evade, the traditional security systems might not pick that, but you need something else to identify what's happening on the inside of the network. This is just an extension, just to give you an idea about what kind of feeds it can receive. So identity, ClearPass, or Cisco ISE, or from Microsoft NPS, the Active Directory is one of the big sources that it receives, so that it can identify, map the user and the machine that the user is logged in. And infrastructure, it could be anything. And you have the other components, the SaaS components, and it does receive from the SIEM applications as well. So be it ArcSight or Splunk. So we do receive the alerts from the security systems as well, from the SIEM applications as well. And outside that, on the other side of it is the packet feeds and the flows. So usually, this is collected by some third-party devices like Gigamon, or if it's Aruba network, then Aruba has a feed going back So it can do that, but for third-party systems, we need to have something like a Gigamon to forward the data back to Introspect for analyzing what's going on. So just a quick recap on ClearPass. So it's a product that lets you analyze what's connected to your network, what kind of devices are connected, like is it an IP phone on your network, or is it an IoT device that's connected on the network? So it provides you complete visibility, both wired and wireless. Once you know what is connected to your network, then probably you can see and control them, what kind of actions that you want to take. You want to put them on a data VLAN, or you want to put them on a DMZ VLAN, right? So you can let ClearPass to control that. So that way it's completely automated, and there are no failures of taking that VLAN back to the switch port, back out of the switch port. Often in a static VLAN management, somebody calls up a help desk, and they ask us to put that specific port on a specific VLAN, and that guy connects that device for 10 days, and then he leaves, and still that port is there available for somebody to connect. Versus if it's ClearPass, if the device unplugs the user from the network, that VLAN is taken back. So it's on the fly. So you don't need to worry about any static VLAN managements at the edge. It's all dynamic. And the response control, it shares all the context information with other security systems. So it doesn't work by itself. So it shares all this context information. It receives feedback. It can receive and COA action from a firewall like Palo. And the sharing of context is works with most of the vendors. Like if you have a firewall, Palo, it works best with the Palo PAN firewall. So it can share all this context information about the user who is connected, about the device, and about the location, and about the device health as well. And the Palo can see, if it's a corporate device, then the PAN can see, oh, I give you full access to internet. Versus if he's on a BYD device, then probably PAN can see, oh, I will just give him internet access and block all the internet access. So it's that way, you can decide your perimeter access based on the user rather than on some numbers. So what's coming out in 6.7? How many of you, this came out end of last year, 6.7. There were a few enhancements, and one of the big ticket items is the licensing. So we had a few requests from the field. It's really confusing, in designing a solution, and it's more expensive when you compare with the other solutions in the market. So that's changing, and we have some improvements on endpoint profiling, and IPv6 requirements was one of the big things that have been asked from the field, and some guest workflows like internationalization, like supporting more languages. And yeah, how many of you sell Posture here? Does any of you sell OnGuard? No. Wow. Okay, just one. That's good. And some enhancements on the extension. So the challenges that we have with the existing licenses, it's for BYOD, if somebody asks you, have 1,000 devices, then we have to go back and ask you how many devices do they use? Is it a one user one device policy or a one user 5 device policy? And then we have to calculate it based on that 5 device policy. So that's not easy. And few customers are like, if I have 500 device, I have 500 appliance, 500 hardware appliance. But if I want to go to 1,000, then it's like I have to go all the way up to 5,000. Or I have to buy 2 500s and manage them. It's like a pain. So we have few compliance, and if you look at some of our competitors, they have guest in the base license. So for us, we were charging guests, and the big thing is explaining this 7-day rolling period. It's like confusing, very difficult to explain to customers. So what's changing is we are just taking out the AAA license thing from the hardware. So earlier it was bundled in the hardware. So be it hardware or VM, we are just taking that out, and then we are creating a new license called Access license. So the Access license will have it includes .1x, guest, MAC authentication, endpoint profiling. So pretty much whatever you had in the base license, and that includes the extensions as well, ClearPass, the security exchange, and the endpoint profiling. So it includes that as well. So whatever you had in the previous, in the built-in version, now it's being categorized as Access license. And the way we calculate is also different. So it's just based on concurrent. So if you have 100 users, so we just based on 100 license. So we no need to worry about this 7-day rolling period and things like that. So for AAA .1x authentication, if there are 100 users connected, then you need just 100 concurrent licenses. So we don't really care if you use 2 devices and if still only 100 is only used, but still we just calculate it based on concurrency. So
what we exceed the limit, let's say we have 100 licenses and we got 120 users, would that block the user or still authenticated?
I think still we allow the burst to go up, but you get that warning later, like how we do today. We get the warning to you. And big changes on the onboard licensing. So if you are selling onboard and you no need to factor the number of devices. If the user has, if it's a 1 user 5 device policy, still you are selling the license for only 1 user. So as far as the username is same, we just factor that as just 1 license. Yeah, so that's a big change. In schools, it becomes much cheaper when you compare it with the legacy solution. So what's going away? I'm going to skip through. I'm going to touch on the important ones. Often our subscription ID is used for getting the ClearPass updates. Often it's not properly tied back to your support contracts. And we had few issues. Few customers get the updates. Few customers not. So that's going away. You just need to put your passport credentials there, and that way you get all the downloads. It's good in some ways. Like one of the customers, their subscription was expired, and we hit that bug that happened last year, and they didn't get that download because the subscription was expired. So, but anyway. You can use the HP passport credentials just to get the updates. And I'm not sure any of you using high capacity guest mode, so that's going away since the guest is a part of base license. That's going away as well. And the enterprise license, so there is no more enterprise license. It's just going to be access license, and then you buy an onboard license or an on-guard license. So just 3, keep it simple. So this is the breakup. So access, you get as low as 100, and so is the onboard and the on-guard, and you get it on a subscription basis as well. On-guard doesn't come with a 5-year offering, so it's just the onboard that comes. The subscription comes with the 1 and the 3 years. And there is a change in the hardware and the VMs. So from we are changing, we are moving away from that 500, 5,000 to small, medium, and large. So what's that small, medium, and large? Anyway, you will get to know how the licensing works on this slide. So I'm going to just skip through this. I'm going to skip through this as well, and then what happens? What does that small, medium, and large means is, you have a C1000 is the small version that supports up to 100, 1,000, 1,000 concurrent users, and then you get the C2000, and then the C3000, and the same goes for the VM. So a VM is just going to be, you just buy a software because there is no licenses bundled, there is no access license in there, so you just buy the right to use software. And based on the specifications, you can either spin up a a C1000 or a 2000 or a 5000, and on top of that you add the access licenses and the on-board and the on-guard licenses. So just to keep it very simple, small, medium, and large, and you just choose what configuration you need and how many access licenses and how many on-guard or on-board licenses. Yeah. All right. So quickly on the central. So there have been big changes that we have introduced over a period of time. Probably you might see some changes in the UI. If you logged in back 6 months ago, and today it's totally different. So we have changed all the management and we have added some few features around it. So the quick one is we did change the licensing for central. So if you want just a management of a device, so be it access point or a instant access point or a switch, you just buy one device license. And we are introducing some feature licenses. We call them as service tokens. So a guest is like a feature. So you buy one service token if you want to enable that guest feature on a per AP basis. So if you have 10 APs, you just buy 10 service tokens and enable guest access. And so is for presence, or so is for clarity. So they are just, you just keep adding the service tokens to enable those features. So Visual RF is coming. It's beta today, but it's coming. It's pretty much the same look and feel, but you will have a lot more functionality on changing and adding the APs in there and getting the coverage. And the unified communication is also coming there. AppRF, we have it today. Managed service portal, is one of the good things, for the partners. If you are managing multiple customers and you have a MSP mode, it's just a software mode. You can just turn on that onto your central subscription, and that way you can manage multiple of your customers. And large partners, few of our partners are using it today, and it's really. We are introducing some good features, to support the MSP model as well, like turning on the alerts specifically for specific customers. So that way, in the MSP mode, you get to know, like a NOC view, you get to know what's going on a specific customer basis, rather than broadly seeing everything. Switches, yeah, pretty much you can. Manage all the cloud-based switches, pretty much everything from the central, and yeah, except the 2530. Do we support that, Rich, in the cloud? Yeah, I don't know why do we have that star there.
Because that's only just recent.
Recent, okay. So all the Aruba OS switches, all the access switches are supported back in the cloud, so you can manage them from there. And on the fly, if you want to check what the stats are, there is an app on Android and iOS, so you can see what's happening for that particular network. You can choose the network, and you can see the usage, you can see the access points, and there is an app. In the same app, you can even do the installation as well. So you can do a barcode scan on the access point, and then you can just tie it back to a group, and that way the access point receives all the configurations back from the cloud. So it also helps you to onboard the device as well. So it has, it's completely open. You can have APIs to manage it. Today, AT&T in the US is pretty much running the central software, but managing it completely using the APIs with, tied back to their internal systems. So they are deploying the McDonald's, about 15,000 stores in the US, and with the use of APIs, initially they started with deploying 5 stores in a week, and then the second week get to 10 stores, and today they are deploying 100 stores a week. So with the use of APIs, it's really easy. Based on the scripting, it's really easy. It enables them to quickly deploy all the products into the network. So Clarity, yeah. So I'm not sure how many of you seen this dashboard in Aruba Central. So that's really completely different from what you see in Airwave. So like in Airwave, it's like more of a time-based, and it tells you how much time a user takes to get onto the network to measure the user experience, which is really critical for any wireless network. Because we don't know if somebody sees a spinning wheel, then often they complain it's a problem with the wireless, but it could be the problem with the DNS or DHCP, or it could be problem with the authentication server. There is a delay in authentication or a delay in getting a IP address. So it could be it pinpoints you where the problem is, and once you see the insights here, and once you click on that, then it gives you a deep view about what's going on there. So is it like exchange failure, or it's like the delay by the server, or is it delay by the client? So you exactly know what the problem is, and then you can escalate that back to a server team or to somebody else to fix the problem. There is some analytics as well. So it's just a presence analytics. So you get like a very high level view, like if somebody's standing outside the store, you get to know how much time he's spending there, whether he walks into the store or not, and how much time he's connected, how much time he's spending inside the store. So it's just based on presence. So we don't really get into deep, but wait for 6 months once Airwave 10 comes out. So you will have something what our ALE is offering today. You could have that. Visual RF, yeah. So you can get to pretty much the same view that you see in Airwave. You get to know about how many APs are deployed and the real-time RF coverage, and if there is a rogue access point, you can go and pinpoint that. So it's all exactly the same, but it's built differently, it's scalable, and it's quicker as well when you compare it with the legacy Airwave 8. Today it's beta. Yes, you will need. I think so. Mark. Today it's beta. Maybe RAF is Visual RF based on service token, or no? Part of base. Okay. Topology view. So that's coming as well. So whatever you have in Airwave today, you can see that it's going to come to Central as well. You can see how many access points connected back to a switch, and how the uplinks are, and even the health of the uplinks as well. So once you get to know the health of the uplinks, then it's like whether it's green or red, whether it's up or down, you can make a decision.
Is it all automatic, or do we need to manually create the topology?
It's coming. I haven't played with this.
In Airwave, it's automatic.
Okay.
So I would imagine it would be automatic.
Oh, wait. Yep. Just skipping through this. It's just a mobile installer, app that helps you deploy the APs, based on the scan. You can just scan the barcode scanner on the access point, and that pops the inventory into the Central, and that way you can drop it to a specific folder back in Central to download the configurations. So it's easy, zero-touch deployment. The NOC dashboard, this is the one that I was referring for managed service provider. It's really helpful, how many devices are up and running for a specific customer. And, because in a NOC view, you would want to see what's happening for every customer rather than the larger view. So this drills down specifically to each customer view. And the next one is the one that really tells you, where the problem is. Like, is it wireless LAN? Where is the problem? The problem is on the wired or wireless, or you are seeing something called as gateway. So that leads up to the SD-WAN story. So we will be releasing shortly the branch gateways. It's the same controllers, but it's running it will be having more features for terminating MPLS and internet, and doing some firewall functionality since it's facing the WAN, and it can do the routing as well based on whether it's going to the corporate or straight to internet. So we are adding some capabilities on that on the SD-WAN as well. And in the gateways, you could see what's the WAN health. Is MPLS down or is internet down? Like, you can see the difference. So that's the site health. For each site health, you could get the indications about each and every user. You see the WAN health link at the bottom. So that's the one that gives you a real view about what's happening on the uplinks that are connected from the SD-WAN perspective. So this is coming, SD-WAN, we call it as SD branch. So in the next few months, we will be releasing this. So you can terminate different types of WAN interfaces, and this will be managed from cloud as well. So you can pretty much manage the branch gateways from the cloud. And when you tie it back, when you have the connectivity between the branches back to the corporate office, you get a view as well saying, how your WAN links are connected. And you hover over it, you get to see what's happening. Green is always good. If something is wrong, if it's broken, then you see the other links. And the top picks there is the routing capability. So when you're facing the WAN, it has to be, you need to do a lot of routings, managing different links, choosing the right path. So that's critical. So that's, we are adding more capability to the branch controllers to support all the advanced routing protocols there, and some stateful firewall functions as well, since it's facing the WAN. So it's coming in the next few months. So the link dashboard that tells you, how many links are up and how many links are down. So that gives you a broader view. So with that, we're just closing down. So how many of you are AI Heads member today? Yeah, so those of you, please sign up for it. It's a free membership, and we are going to have a local community page as well, AHEAD's local community, so that we can better collaborate locally here in this region. Sharing information, sharing your deployment, guides and things like that. And that's going to be really helpful if you are if you've worked on a specific use case that might be helpful for the others in the region. And we will have more information on setting up that local page in the next couple of sessions. We will have that ready. And the next month, so Richard is the guy who's running the switching, deep dive switching. So it's going to be it's a very important session, I would say, because you get to know more in depth about our switching. And some channel enablement. So if you want AOS trainings, AOS 8 training, that's coming up next month, 7th of March. It's in 3 cities. If you have other colleagues in the other cities, we run in Brisbane and Melbourne as well. So you can register it online in the Aruba Networks events page /training. So there you could go and register there. And the Mobility Mornings, you guys have already registered. If you haven't registered for the other sessions for the next 5 months, so please register, and hopefully you will receive the confirmation emails on time, probably next time. Any questions? Yeah? And that's it. All right. Thank you.